then, the world around me froze as my wife's betrayal unfolded right in front of my eyes. I stood there, petrified, unable to move or utter a single word. She, the woman I loved and trusted unconditionally, had betrayed me with another man, unaware that I was watching them. My eyes witnessed this tragic event, and I could not believe what was happening. In that moment, I felt not only my heart breaking, but all the dreams and hopes we had built together. It was the point of no return, the beginning of a story that would change not only my life, but also the dramas of destiny intertwined with the fate of others involved in this web of betrayal and suffering. Are you ready to dive into this amazing tale of infidelity, full of intrigue and emotional turmoil? Then fasten your seatbelts and prepare to dive into a world where every step could be your last and every decision determines your fate. Welcome to the world of cheating on your wife and the drama of fate, where the story unfolds right in front of the audience. It's good afternoon. If anyone is interested and has some free time, listen to my story. I haven't told it to anyone, not even my friends, but I was so full of it that I decided to share it. Maybe it would make me feel better, but I don't think it would. Okay, I'll start at the beginning. I'm 36 years old. I met my ex-wife 13 years ago. At the time I was 23, I had already graduated from 2 technical colleges and an institute. I had a good job. I had already managed to buy a large house in the city center. The house was registered in my mother's name, since I was often away on business trips and I didn't have time to do the paperwork. Well, I was a young guy, promising. Okay, I'm not going to praise myself or you'll stop listening. Well, as it should be, such a good guy had a good girlfriend. And she really was a great girl. Tall, pretty modest, and such a great cook. Way. I was crazy about her. But my parents didn't want a wedding categorically. They didn't know my friend at the time, but they knew her mother very well. She was openly cheating on her husband and was proud of it. My wife didn't look like my mother-in-law at all. The complete opposite. It even seemed to me that she was not her daughter. Anyway, my parents were so much against the wedding that they even threatened to sell my house, since my mother was the owner. I was very offended at that time, packed everything, and moved to an apartment. After a year of wandering around in apartments, we started having big problems. The organization where I worked went bankrupt, plus health problems. My blood pressure was so high. I even fainted. In the end, we had to move to the countryside. My acquaintances allowed me to stay free of charge at my parents' house, which they took to the city. In general, my wife and I were stuck. It is not enviable. We live in the countryside. There are no jobs, no money. We somehow managed to buy groceries. But my life with my wife was wonderful, like in a fairy tale. We lived soul to soul, supported each other, took care of each other. In the village, we started growing our own farm. After the city, even though it was a small town, everything was strange to me. It was frightful to get used to all the delights of the village, to get up before dawn, all these bulls, cows, pigs, hayfields, manure, and so on. Tiki, but as they say, brave heaven in a shack. Truly, the right words. After about 8 years of our life in the village, everything changed. I reconciled with my parents. We had 2 beautiful daughters, started a large farm. We bought the house we lived in, bought the neighbor's house, bought 2 good trucks, a tractor. I was already driving a new car. My wife had an old foreign car. In addition to the animals, we had a huge pasture. We also grew mushrooms. I even managed to buy out a big house on the collective farm that had an office in it. We wanted to open a hardware store. All in all, we started to live very rich by rural standards. Everything was so good. I owned business, big plans, a wife one could only dream of, beautiful children. But that's where it all started. I had a thoroughbred hunting dog. I became avid hunter in the village, and a hunter acquaintance brought me a female dog to breed. And he brought a bottle of cognac with him as a reward. I did not drink after my health problems and to keep my friend company. I invited my wife. She wasn't a big drinker. She could just keep me company, but on that day, she drank with pleasure. We had a lot of fun. They drank the cognac and wanted some more. There was alcohol at home, but my wife asked for the same cognac. I naturally went to the store since I was sober and they were waiting for me. I quickly drove over, came home, and they were sitting, relaxing in the gazebo. And I saw my acquaintance on his knees, petting my wife. I could not believe my eyes. I stood there and could not do anything. I could not even take one step. My legs did not obey. My hands were weak. I could not even say anything. That's the picture. My wife is cheating, and I'm standing 10 meters away like a fool and a pervert, watching it all. I don't know how long I stood like that until my sweetheart saw me and jumped up. The acquaintance abruptly pulled up his pants, started mumbling something, apologized, and abruptly ran away. It was a strange situation. I could tear the offender's head off for some kind of insult, but here, I can't do anything to my wife's lover. Some people write about how they beat their wives or lovers, or even both, in such situations, and I felt so bad that there was nothing I could do. I remember going into the house, and that was it. I woke up. The local paramedic was sitting next to me, my wife was running around sobbing and crying, and I had a cast iron head and my eyes hurt terribly. So guys, I almost cracked up when I saw that movie. The paramedic then said that my blood pressure was over 240 over 180, and if I had been older, you would have been gone. A few days later, I decided to file for divorce. My wife was on her knees, begging for forgiveness. But in the moment she was cheated on, her tears wouldn't dry up. She was crying all the time. Even changed her appearance, somehow lost weight. I even felt sorry for her. I loved her so much. So I decided to forgive her. I thought she was drunk and didn't know what she was doing. What a fool I was. After my wife's betrayal, we tried to move on with our lives. Immediately my soul was not the same. I lost interest in everything. In general, life became something gray and uninteresting. Only my children were happy, but then everything seemed to be getting better. I got a job in city administration, started commuting 50 kilometers for work, and my wife was engaged in housekeeping. We lived like that for about 2 years. Everything was fine, and then one acquaintance told me in a conversation, as if jokingly, you know, not my business. But when you are at work near your house, I constantly see a local cab driver's car. Right now, my wife can't drive her own car anymore. I just freaked out. Cab driver? What the hell? I don't know. Anyway, I start to find out for sure. Their Talpa cheatings and other hahayang. My wife is 32. He's 48. I'm married. For 2 children. Children are almost as old as my wife. In addition, he is handicapped, something with his legs after the accident. I come home in the evening, and I ask her, well, let's talk about your cab driver. She didn't even flinch. I thought she would be frightened and cry, like last time, or start bluffing and lying. But no, she said. Yes, I've been meaning to tell you for a long time. We've been dating for a year. I thought you knew about it for a long time. I feel so good with him. He's so caring kind. He loves me. What can I tell you? The exact mother-in-law. That's my story. I divorced my wife, didn't hurt her, bought a house, made good repairs in it, upgraded her car. The kids are judging their mother, but they moved to live with her anyway. And I'm going to move to the city. I'm looking for a place to live. I think I already have a job. Life is not over. I'm only 36. I think I'll find my love. And one last piece of advice. Listen to your parents. They won't give you bad advice. Threw away 12 years of my life. Bitch, I got a cousin. Good for bid. So he had a mess up in his family life too, and his stories straightened my brains out. So I listened to his conclusions and wisdom at the right time. Now I will share exactly how he told me this at the time. To make a long story short, during 10 years of being together, there were 3 infidelities, 2 of which I forgave, and the 3rd was an eye-opener. Probably someone would ask me why my eyes have opened only now, but I will answer that there were many reasons. A crazy love that turned my brain off, closed my eyes to who I was living with. Maybe the mail rod was off. The bottom line is this: 10 years of living with a man who used me, but I let myself be had in many different ways. But there is one huge upside. It's an experience that changed me. I'm sure for the better. I won't describe the details. You won't learn anything new. I want to try to help those who don't know what to do. I don't want to impose my opinion, just a story to think about. And the last change was found out a month ago. As usual, stress trying to keep the family together, but the ex outdid herself. Cheated so nastily that even I, a hardened romantic, or can I use other words, got a kick out of it. To be clear, with the ex, always wanted to leave, never asked for forgiveness, only my desire to keep the family together. Now the action that everyone who is caught in a calcium surplus in the body needs to take. The first is to get a divorce and find a new wife. For those who have balls of steel and cheating is a coincidence. For those who don't want to fall into long-term depression, ruin their health, or be skirting at the feet of their beloved, we begin the second phase. and that is to cut the wife all the benefits of family life: money, vacations, clothes. The third stage is the most important. We look for the woman we have been missing, and sure to find her, all the time living with his wife, cooking, cleaning. Cleaning sex, also not bad. Bottom line, if you think your wife is going to change, she's bound to put up with everything and try to keep you. In this case, you have a very small chance of keeping the family together. If she swings, you stay in a relationship, and the breakup process is mild. I don't urge you to use girls as a demander. No, look for the you really want to start a family with. Maybe you won't need a wife anymore. In my case, the bottom line is this 30 years old, divorced, well-off, planning to live together with a girl who's given me more love and affection in 2 months than she has in her entire married life. My ex packed her bags and is living with someone else. There is a child. I communicate. Some will say I'm weak, didn't kick myself out. I agree, it's perfect. I am not perfect. There are many flaws. The most important thing is to know them and not to repeat my mistakes in the next relationship. Sometimes we unknowingly drive our wives to adultery. We are too kind or too cruel. They go crazy or look for affection on the side. My joint was too soft, not saying no when I needed to, and so on. It was great to see my ex's reaction when her girlfriends told her about my relationship 2 days after she moved out of the apartment. She is still very interested in my personal life, using the baby to get to know me from my side of the gas. Interest only sometimes because of the baby. You remember it. Cross yourself and start planning your new happy family life further. I wish all men who find themselves in a difficult situation get over it and come out with their heads held high. Welcome to a wonderful world where fate, drama, and honesty intertwine in an unpredictable symphony. My wife and I had lived together for 8 years. My daughter was 5 at the time. I was 33 and my wife was 32. We lived well. We did not quarrel, practically. Of course, we had our disagreements. How could we do without them? Anyway, bad luck happened. A very good friend of hers died of cancer, and before that, she asked my wife to look after her son. Her friend had a husband, but he worked in shifts and was away from home for a month and a half. My wife and I knew my friend's husband from the very beginning of their acquaintance. We went to a friend's wedding, and my wife was also a witness. I didn't really know them. I didn't talk to them much. I visited them a few times. My wife spent more time with her friend. She would come and visit us, and then my wife would go to them. Neither she nor her husband had parents. My friend's parents died early, and her husband only had his mother. But she also passed away about 10 years ago. My friend's husband, of course, had no words for it. He supported the child completely. If there was anything that needed to be bought, he always gave money without a word or bought it himself. When he came, he brought a lot of presents for his son, and when necessary, he helped me physically. We took care of the boy even though he missed his parents, especially his mother. Of course, I treated the child as my own, especially since the children were the same age, only 2 months apart. Our daughter was the oldest. In general, little by little, the boy got used to us and they became friends with our daughter at once. In a month, they were inseparable. The child stopped being bored a lot and talked less about his mother. Naturally, when his father came on vacation, he always took his son with him. So a year and a half passed. Everything was fine. The boy even got confused sometimes, calling him daddy. That flattered me personally. And then one day, my wife tells me that we need to have a serious talk. Well, I guess I have to, My wife told me that the boy's father also wants to find a job here. They say, why waste time? Well, he is resting. You can also work part-time. But there's no one to take care of his son, and he does not want to entrust the child to anyone else. So he asked our opinion on the matter. I did not, of course, said, but whether the child is not weaned from his father. My wife replied that she had already talked to the baby's father, and he said that he was even willing to pay for the child's care. At the same time, he would take his son home at night. Well, I think I don't mind the boy, as long as my wife doesn't have a hard time. She mostly takes care of the kids, and I'm almost always at work, especially since the boy started calling me daddy more and more often, and he called his wife mom a long time ago. At first, my wife and I tried to explain to him, but then we gave up the idea, especially since the child took offense. It took almost 3 years. The children were already like brother and sister, and they lived very amicably. They went to the same school and the same class, and everything seemed fine. The father of the boy and the son did not care, but the child increasingly refused to go to him. I began to notice that my wife began to cool down in the relationship. Nothing seemed to change. She was always affectionately meeting me from work. Dinner was always ready. The house was in order. The kids were fine too. But the series, yes. My wife was sometimes cold or conversely, overly active. Actually, I asked her if something was wrong, if she had something wrong. But my wife just said that she was getting tired sometimes. Everything seemed to go on as before. I went home. My wife was dressed up, wearing a beautiful dress, which she'd worn only once and which had been gathering dust in her closet for years, and black stockings. I asked her what the occasion was. My wife said she hadn't worn makeup in a long time, but then, while cleaning, she pulled her dress out of the closet and decided to try it on. It turned out that the dress was still just right for her. In fact, it was a rehearsal. It's how she wanted to meet me at work. Don't I lick it? I liked it. I liked it a lot. My wife looked amazing. From that day on, my wife would often see me wearing makeup, sometimes very sexy clothes. And why sometimes children? You can understand. Everything began to fall apart after another year. I noticed that the boy began to shut down when he was alone with his wife. No, he was normal when we were together. But as soon as I went into another room, the kid would shut up right away. One day, my son conspiratorially said he wanted to tell me something. It was to me alone without his mother. And he told me everything. One day that other daddy came to see us. The daughter was at her girlfriend's, and the boy, the other daddy gave him money and sent him to a video game store to pick out any game he wanted. The store was closed, and the child came home. When he got home, he heard what the child was too young to hear, and then the naked mother came out of the room. Anyway, the wife and the other dad asked me for a long time not to tell me anything, scaring me that I would feel very bad if I found out. In the evening, when the children were asleep, I called my wife into the kitchen. My wife was crying, asking me not to divorce her, saying that it was over, that they were no longer seeing each other from the day my son saw everything, that she loved her child as her own. All of this, as it turns out, has been going on for the second year. She doesn't know how it all happened. When asked if she loved him, she said she didn't, said she loved only me. She understands that she made a huge mistake, and that she is very sorry and will do everything in her power to make it right. Asked for forgiveness, said that everything in our family was fine with her, that she was very sorry that she had to cheat. She didn't know why she didn't talk to me right away. I said that I could never forgive her and I would file for divorce. And now the most important thing. According to the court, the daughter was sent to live with her mother and we live with my son. After the divorce, he flatly refused to return to his natural father. I want to adopt him. My daughter is often at our house. They are constantly in touch with my son. They often meet and keep in touch on social networks. My daughter says that my mom went out to work, that she cries a lot and says she loves me, also that she misses her brother. Let's remember, my dear friends, how many stories just here on the Drama of Destiny channel on our channel have had similar symptoms. Yes, exactly the symptomatology. It's nothing but a manifestation of a sick mind. And let it be another thing. May anyone throw a stone at me who says that to explain one's irresponsible behavior at a mature age with words like, I don't know how it happened, and to call a mistake, a brazen 2-year-long adultery, the one who thinks this is said by a truly mentally stable, reasonable person, let him throw a stone at me. Somehow unsure I'll remain without a scratch. Esteemed subscribers, most of all in this story, of course, I feel sorry for the boy. Basically, as cruel as it sounds, we can already start saving up for a lifetime subscription to a therapist for him. After all, somehow surviving the loss of a beloved mother at such a young age, later than the betrayal of his father, and even more so with that new mother. But that's total hardcore, way beyond my, at least, understanding. And I hope the reality of it looks a little, or even a lot better than it does in this story. Speaking of which, it looks a lot like the actual story. In the comments, what pushes mature individuals into such explanations for their well-being? What could it be? Fickleness, irresponsibility, and some kind of total desire for the idea of being heard as pathological liars. So, who has ideas? Whose thoughts on this subject? Please write in the comments. It will be very interesting to read. What do you think? Who are these people? What could push them to it? Well, as for the story, I wish the strongest patience to the man. It's right that he did not leave the boy. This is an act of a strong man. Of course, I think it will be tough to cope with a living birth father and a father who has not been deprived of his parental rights. Let's wish him luck with that. And by tradition, if you like this video, you have to like it. If not subscribed to the channel, subscribe, of course. This helps the channel grow and thus motivates me to work for you. I do not say goodbye, and we will hear tomorrow in the next story.